Hello, everyone. I hope you have a cup of coffee or tea to enjoy this conversation. I'm expecting Zeeshan to come on board pretty soon. He doesn't come on right away sometimes. He has to save the battery on his phone out there in the hills of Wales. In any event, it's been, as usual, it's the time acceleration phenomenon that we're going through at this time. And so consequently, I might as well get that out of the way, consequently. And so what we're looking at here is that in the course of an afternoon, we can expect as many news events to happen as would normally occur in a month or even two. And this can only lead one to conclude that there's very significant things going on at this time. And so this conversation is unique out of conversations that I have, in that it tends to focus more on our capability of attunement to what I describe. And what is described in the Gospel of John is God is love. And it's perhaps fortuitous that my even saying that tends to chase away all the materialists that aren't ready to hear that as of yet, and that's okay. They're struggling with their own personal dragons. But in meeting the dragon in this age of ours that tends to resemble apocalyptic crescendo as just really an introduction into the encroachment on our humanness by forces of subnature. And much of this is to be seen all around us. And I'm looking for Zeeshan to see if he's there. He's not there yet. Maybe he hasn't gotten a signal. I don't know, but I'll just continue anyways. So, in light of all the various podcasts I've done, and they all tend to string together, so that if you are watching one series, you might want to check out the others. And of course, go to my YouTube. You could find them all conveniently gathered in their respective files. Just go to John Barnwell on YouTube, and I'm not the soccer player or the football player, although I have done both. But if you would, please click on the like and also click on notices so that we can build our little minute Grail community here. And in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, it's not really quantity, but quality. And at this time, we're going through so many levels of encroachment by the meta state that's attempting to establish itself in opposition to human sovereignty. It behooves us to be able to find some way of keeping our focus on the things that really matter, which is our connection to the spiritual world in the name of Christ. And whatever that means for you, I leave that up to you to solve. The path of the Grail is centered so much on being able to enter into the center of the phenomenon rather than get lost in the periphery. The periphery of that is described in Wolfram von Eschenbach's Parsifal as the garden of delights that surrounds the castle of Klingsor. And so you have to get into the the center of the castle, yes. Rudolf Steiner makes that point regarding the qualitative nature of thought, that people that dwell within the realm of abstract thinking tend to be working with the thinking that dwells in the periphery of the brain, whereas the experience of the spiritual aspect of thinking is to be found as one moves toward the center. And so all of which we're dealing with is in terms of the relationship between the center and the periphery. Just as there's the 12 pairs of cranial nerves in the brain, there's 12 fundamental archetypal viewpoints that are expressed in the 12 archetypal philosophical viewpoints, all of which have valid aspects that can reveal certain appearances in the world, but nonetheless, at the center of the 12 is the 13th, and the center of the 12 apostles is Jesus Christ. And in the center of the 12 tribes of Israel is the Solomon's temple with the Ark of the Covenant. And so what we're looking at here is the temple wisdom that I've outlined in its historical streaming in my books, The Arcana of the Grail Angel, The Spiritual Science of the Holy Blood and of the Holy Grail, a study developed out of the work of Rudolf Steiner of the underground streams of esoteric Christianity, which flowed from the Brotherhood of the Holy Grail to the Order of the Knights Templar and the True Rosicrucian Order, which is some 640 pages. And then there is the sequel, Arcana of Light on the Path, the Star Wisdom of the Tarot and the Light on the Path, which is a meditative guide in which I use the 22 fundamental archetypes as a means for laying out as a trestle board or framework of the mysteries of esoteric Christian stream. And so there's, in both books, extensive series of diagrams that helps one to come to a connection with these mysteries. And Rudolf Steiner had made the point that it's wholesome to be able to give children in their education legends and fairy tales and in all of these various epics that have an archetypal significance in the terms of being riddles, and that these riddles provide a question. And it's that question, that's the quest of the Grail. Because Rudolf Steiner had once said, when he came into one of Walter Johannes Stein's classrooms, and Walter Johannes Stein was one of his direct students, and I'm a direct student of Werner Glass, who was a direct student of Walter Johannes Stein. So there is a connection there. But Rudolf Steiner came into the class and he said, Grail means gradeli, which means gradually. And so the path of the Grail is a gradual path. It's the path of the fool. And we're all fools, you know. We all get it wrong numerous times of the day. And so it behooves us not to make any great claims as to who we might think we might be, but just to remain humble within our relationship to the experience, and see if we can just begin to work from this dullness that's described in Wolfram von Eschenbach, where Parsifal is able to move from dullness to salda, from Tumfheit to salda, from dullness to blessedness. And this blessedness is the clarity of being able to perceive the spiritual backdrop of reality and not just your sense impressions, that's the garden of Klingsor. That's where all the troubles can begin. And so you could be really well motivated, but if you're only drawing your inspiration from the world of the senses, you're subject to the thought structures that lead one to illusory aspects of perception. And while it's good to be able to comprehend those aspects of thinking, it's important to be able to come into a relationship with that spiritual input that one might receive even within the state of sleep. And so ultimately what we have is an ability to be able to be open, to be working with an open set rather than a closed set. And the scientism that's so prevalent today like to present their worldview as if it's a closed set and if they have the answers. But any sincere scientist will acknowledge that no, we don't have all the answers. We've only have basic premises that we work with that we attempt to use to guide through the world of phenomena. And in the Grail quest, it's keeping that open set. Being on the quest means that you're open to receive further input, because this is a path that's continually in development. And I think I should probably take a peek and see what happened to our friend. I have my phone somewhere. Here it is. He might be having trouble getting a signal off into the mountains of Wales. Let's see. Okay, we'll wait and see if he responds. But we can keep chatting, that's okay. When he shows up, he'll show up. So within spiritual science of Rudolf Steiner is encompassed a tremendous repository of human wisdom known as anthroposophy. And basically that's the anthropo, or human, Sophia, or wisdom. So the wisdom of being human. But it's challenging because there are paths of wisdom that exist that don't fully embody that impulse that's moving forward since a couple thousand years ago with the incarnation of Christ, fulfilling the mystery of Golgotha and going through the crucifixion and resurrection of the archetypal human being in the resurrection form. And so he's created a healing, I say archetype, but it's so much more than an archetype, because it encompasses the complete microcosmic, macrocosmic human existence that is the goal of this fourth world in which we're living, which is the human stage, is the fourth stage. The fifth stage being angelic. As St. Paul said, you shall be as the angels. The sixth stage is archangelic. And then beyond that is the archai, or time spirits. And then there's stages beyond that. But the primary development has to do with a sevenfold chain. And so we have this experience of the world of the senses, of being isolated, that we're like the prodigal son, that we've gone off, and now we have to make the return to the Father. And so we've passed that point, that midpoint of Earth evolution, way back 2,000 years ago, in that age, the age of Aries, which began in 747 BC. And at that time, so much of the impulses that had been received from the ancient mystery centers had fallen into decline. And so consequently, there were dark impulses coming through there that were emblematic of the decay of human culture, that we had fallen and descended so far. And so it took the anointing of earth evolution with the incarnation of Christ to bring us through that turning point. And the suffering through the Golgotha experiences to prevent earth evolution from tumbling into oblivion as a result of the fallen state of humankind. And so now it behooves us to align ourselves with this impulse, this Christ impulse. But it's key that we find that path in perfect freedom and not a compulsory viewpoint. The compulsory path, the fundamentalist path it has certain features of it that at least they're pointing in the right direction, but yet they don't embody that Michaelic freedom that's represented by our current archangelic period that began in 1879. It was in 1879 when the great war in heaven occurred that Rudolf Steiner talks about, that culminated in November of 1879 when the Archangel Michael drove out of the spiritual world down to the earthly realm of the fallen spirits, the rebellious spirits, and now they're attempting to inhabit human beings to further their own personal evolution. So as a result of this, you see these people running around and you're wondering, are they even human? And you'd have to say, well, the inspiration that they're receiving is something that's other than that which is intended for a human being, because a truly human individual self or ego, but ego in the higher sense, not in the lower sense, that's that core impulse. That's the Christ impulse. And that is the Grail mystery itself, is the nurturing of that human impulse that is the goal of our fourth world here, that we're supposed to complete human evolution. And so as a result of the activities that we see going on around us today, there's so many things that are attempting to take away our humanity and bring us into some kind of subnature, singularity. And that's the best that these people can come up with, is to have an impulse that's serving the mechanical world. But we're not mechanical beings. We are much more than that. And so we have to be able to maintain our relationship to the spiritual world as an antidote to this. And this could be done artistically. This can be done just in the ordinariness of our life and the way in which we relate to nature and are respectful of the gifts of nature. And, like as Jesus said, do this in memory of me, and referring to the Last Supper. And so one can consecrate the meals that one eats, that they would be something that would lead you toward that goal, rather than just being an animalistic appetite being quenched, so to speak. And so we have to take these lower fires and transmute them into higher fires, the cleansing fire of the Spirit. And we can do that on a daily basis. And while one might think that, I'm a little bit insane, that's okay. You can think that. But there are great examples that have come before us that demonstrate this path. And one that came to mind to me this morning was an individual that showed up at around Cologne Cathedral. And Johannes Tauler was a priest that was working there, and he would give services and all of that. And he was approached by extremely humble-looking gentleman who very humbly asked him if he would be his father confessor. And over a period of time, Johannes Tauler realized that this gentleman that was talking to him was not just this humble gentleman, but actually was his spiritual teacher. And this teacher has been given the name in the tradition as Gottes Friend vom Oberland, God's friend from the high land. And Gottes Friend vom Oberland recommended to Tauler that he refrain from speaking for a period of time until he told him that he could end it. It was about a period of a month or so. And so Tauler maintained silence for a month. And then Gottes Friend vom Oberland told him that he could now speak, and he went and he gave a sermon at the cathedral, and it said that it was so moving that there were people in the cathedral that were fainting as a result of the quality of his speech. It wasn't so much in terms of the words that he was saying, but the import of them, the actual spiritual impulses that were embedded within them, that his words actually had taken up a spiritual power. And so we want to live within the idea that we can receive the inspiration of grace, and that we can be representatives of this impulse in our daily lives, and to have the capacity to find that inner silent space can only cultivate that. There's, of course, the various techniques that Rudolf Steiner gives in Knowledge of Higher Worlds, How Is It Achieved, that can help deepen this experience. But it's important that at the core of this, there's a tradition that's presented in all genuine traditions. And that is a sentence that's given in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, out of the yogic tradition of India. And it's said that meditation is the cessation of the modifications of the mind. So that it has to do with being able to enter into that emptiness in a sacred way. And in doing this, you can find your inner source of power. Another way of looking at it is the path given in The Philosophy of Freedom, otherwise titled The Philosophy of Spiritual Activity by Rudolf Steiner, where he gives one a scientifically presented way of looking at thinking, that by thinking about thinking, you can achieve a once removed vantage point from your thinking, and that can bring you into a higher intuitive relationship with your world of sense perceptions. That until one achieves that degree of self-reference in one's thinking, that one tends to just be an echo chamber of one's sense impressions. And it's never been more strong than it is today, that we have this confronting us, that we are continually being bombarded with all of these opinions and self-impressions that are imposing a self on us, right? It's the self that they want for you. You know, you go to school and they don't teach you how to think anymore. They tell you what to think. And so what I'm doing, I'm in a way teaching you a way to look at unthink, that until one can enter into being detached from that which is interacting with the life of the senses, but it's not entangled in it, that it dwells and observes that, and that there's something in you that is observing what you yourself are doing. I'm having that experience at this very moment, and I'm sure there are those of you out there that are at least getting glimmerings of this. But once you see yourself seeing yourself, then you're in a clearer frame of reference to be able to make the freedom that's possible within the realm of thought a reality. And that's really the realm in which freedom lives, is in thinking. You know, we are caught up, and we can easily get so caught up in our world of sense impressions, and that's the garden of Klingsor. That's where Kundry is. Kundry, the temptress, is going to keep you so preoccupied with all manner of things that you don't even come around to understanding why you're really here, that you're not here just to satiate all these appetites or to accumulate all these things. Those are all well and good in and of themselves. They're not the point, you know. And I don't want to get into moralizing here, but Jesus did say for a rich man, it'd be easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than it would for a rich man to go to heaven. So you have to say, well, why did he say that? What was he getting at? And it isn't the things, because he had disciples that were wealthy, and he had some that weren't. So that wasn't the thing. It was their perception of what that meant to their soul development. And in terms of understanding these things, it behooves us to at least try to, at some point in the day, gain some introspection and try to gain some clarity regarding how we might find ourselves in the midst of this bramble bush of sense impressions, especially at this time when there's so much falsehood just floating around. I mean, geez, there's recordings coming out of the son of the presidential candidate, vice president, Joe. I mean, it's just, I can't even get into it. I don't want to get into it in this one. I have other things available on my YouTube channel that can give you insights regarding what's going on in that world of the bramble bush. But here we like to talk a little bit about this whole idea of centering and bringing oneself back to why you're really here. And in fact, I'm wondering why Zeeshan isn't really here. Where is he? And it's okay. I mean, I'm sure he has a reason. I'll send him another message. Maybe he couldn't get a signal. That's very possible. So anyways, as of late, what we've been trying to do over at American Intelligence Media is to provide people with information and vetting it as much as we can regarding what's going on in the worldly world that we're all dealing with. And a lot of people, I've been asked, do you have faith in President Trump? And I say, no, I don't have faith in President Trump. I have hopes for President Trump. And he seems to, when he gets the right information, he tends to make the right decisions. And I feel he is a good man, although far from perfect, as am I. And I'm don't attempt to remove the mote from the eye of someone else before you remove the plank from your own. But it could be off-putting for some people because he does have such a larger-than-life personality, and that's true, he does. But perhaps at this point, that's what it takes to be able to confront the things that he's confronted. But I don't know anybody that has that kind of energy like he does. It's absolutely astounding that he can go and do 3 rallies in one day, and he's just full of energy. And so it's heartening to me, because I know I've known people that knew him personally, and I've heard stories for many years about him secretly doing kind things for people. You know, he's paid off people's bills. He let this one black woman live in one of Trump's buildings for 7 years, rent free, and had her food provided for her. So he's got a basic goodness at the core of at times gruff exterior. And so while I don't have faith in him, I have faith in God. I have faith in Christ. And I have hopes that President Trump can continue to be guided by the impulses that he has made reference to. He has said that he's had an awakening since becoming president, and let's just hope that it's the inspiration that he's receiving is from wholesome sources. But it appears to be. I mean, he's waging peace like nobody before. President Obama had us bombing 7 different countries, whereas President Trump has been pulling out military troops and creating treaties, although you can't even hardly keep track of the treaties. I mean, he's got a treaty going on in Kosovo and Sarajevo, that whole region. And it didn't take long for him to do it, even though people have been saying that they were going to do that for so long, since the fall of the Iron Curtain. And yet he goes in and he says, look, if you guys can't work it out, we're not going to do any trading with you. And so it took them about 20 minutes to realize they better make a deal. They made a deal. And so now there's a treaty in the Kosovo, Herzegovina region of the former Czech Republic. And you look at the treaty that he's able to craft in the Middle East. And look at what he worked out with North Korea. Everybody thought the wheels were going to fall off on that. They were launching missiles and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And now it turns out, they're kind of wanting to break out and break away from just being a puppet state of their neighboring China. And it'll be interesting to see. And I have some time ago made a prediction that I think that the CCP is on its last legs. But ultimately, it's up to the people in China itself to pull it off. It can't be done by any outside forces. They have to find their own freedom, and yet we have forces within our own country that are attempting to bring us under the same kind of totalitarian gauntlet as the Chinese. So we want to get out from under this whole New World Order plan that's coming through the United Nations, that's been a long time in the making. And but ultimately, it still comes back to the individual, as that, are you contributing to the unfoldment of this plan of the God of love? It's ultimately, is that what you're doing? Because a lot of people that are on the left, they think that's what they're doing. They think that there's some kind of way that you can legislate morality or have some bureaucracy in place that's going to force you to do something that's good. They are blinded by many of the ideas that have been put forward regarding global warming, for example. An amazing idea, a formula, a closed set formula that didn't include in its computation the sun. Well, isn't that brilliant? Climate change, a formula that doesn't include the sun and the cycles, the solar cycles. So that was just something that was put together by the folks at Enron, the people that are famous for how they bamboozled people with their energy deals, a giant Ponzi scheme. And so this is what they tried running with, and President Trump was smart enough to set it aside. A lot of it had to do with the wonderful work that was done by Viscount Monckton, Lord Christopher Monckton from the UK, who was one of the advisors in their government some time ago. And but he is quite an astute mathematician, and he was able to work out the mathematics and show that is just, it's ludicrous that there is nothing going on. So now they don't call it global warming anymore. Now they call it climate change. By the way, none of the predictions that were predicted by Al Gore in his dramatic movie, none of them came true. And so now what are we struggling with? We're struggling with this whole thing about getting into fear about getting sick. Well, I don't know. I think that the British Empire did a pretty good job in establishing their empire. They called them limeys. They kept limes on the ships. That got them their vitamin C. And it's well known all over the British Empire that they were inclined to drink their gin and tonic with lime. Now, you don't need the gin, but the tonic, I just had some yesterday, and I took a zinc, a nice zinc supplement, and then had some good quality tonic water with some lime. And so I'm confident that I'm not inclined to slip into the realm of getting a cold or any of that stuff. I go 10 years at a time without getting sick. And so if you don't let yourself get run down, get sunlight so you're getting your vitamin D3, get your vitamin C, and get your zinc. These are things that you need to maintain your healthy function of the immune system. These are not drugs. These are just things that's just ground level of being healthy. So I hope you might consider doing some things that would help you along those lines and stay strong, because that's just a smart thing to do. And you don't have to get carried away with the zinc. It's like about 30 units a week should be sufficient for most people. And so that's the zinc. I just do it like once a week. But that lemon and tonic or lime and tonic is wonderful. I mean, you look at the British Empire and you look at the going up against the Spanish Armada, for example. They didn't have limes on board. And so the Brits are fighting against the Spanish sailors that were very weak. They were undernourished. And the Brits are with their limes, their teeth weren't falling out. They're just a lot stronger. And so they were unbeatable. And that was one of their secret recipes. And people would make jokes, call them limeys, but it worked well for them. And with the tonic, they avoided developing malaria in the tropic regions. So these are goods. The tonic is good for just a general working with the zinc. Of course, they would get most of their zinc. They ate a lot of seafood, see? And a good source of zinc is like, you could eat oysters if you're so inclined. But zinc is something that you need. It's one of the first of the trace minerals that was isolated as being essential for human nutrition. And it was actually, that discovery was made here in Detroit at Wayne State University by Dr. Nanda Prasad, who I've known people that studied with him when they were studying medicine here at Wayne State. And so it behooves oneself to learn about these things. And it's fascinating when you get into understanding the forces of nutrition and how they can help you, because basically, if you look at the fluids within the body, meaning your blood and your lymph and your interstitial and your extrastitial fluids in the body, their composition is essentially identical to seawater. And so that there's 90 some elements of the periodic table that are present within them. But if you look at modern farming, where the soil is so depleted that you're not getting these elements. And so it behooves one to be able to bring into your diet a source. A good source is sea vegetables, although I would recommend getting them from the Atlantic because of the unfortunate events that have happened in Japan with the nuclear problem over there. But I've been sourcing seaweed from near Greenland, between Greenland and Iceland, for 25 years, in the coldest waters, so that that's my path towards it. But you might want to at least take some kelp or something in your diet. You don't need large amounts, but these are things that are essential for forming things such as metalloenzymes that can only form if they have the proper element. But your body will tend to improvise. And so if you don't give your body the right elements, then it will try to improvise with other elements that can't perform the function, but the body will form that particular enzyme and it won't perform the function that's necessary. A good example is like iron deficiency. Your body will attempt to supplement the iron deficiency with cadmium. Cadmium is very toxic, see? And so, but it's easy to drive it out if you increase the intake of iron, and your body will go, oh, good, that's what we wanted, really. And it will eliminate the cadmium and replace it with the wholesome iron. And you want the iron in the proper amounts, and your body has the wisdom to know what that is. You don't need to get carried away with any of these things. It's just giving your body the option to be able to make metabolic decisions regarding the trace minerals that are in your diet. And so that's a beautiful thing. And that just shows you that there's a tremendous spiritual wisdom behind the human experience. It's not just blind force of chemistry, but that there is this tremendous wisdom that indwells the human body and the etheric body and the astral body, and that your human experience from your ego, from that Grail chalice that's able to receive the inspiration of the highest spiritual realms through sleep. It's just amazing. And the more that you give yourself aspects that are even like mythic, like reading the fairy tale of the Lily and the Green Snake by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, that's a good place to start, because it just gives you archetypal images to develop an imagination that points in that direction. The intent of all the ritual work of the Catholic Church and Freemasonry, that was the intention of those symbols and the symbolism that you find in the Gothic cathedrals. What's the point of all that? That they're meant to give you something to riddle on, something to contemplate. something like the in Tibetan Buddhism, they have those elaborate drawings, the tankas, and you see like there'll be this wheel like a mandala, and there's these little squares, and what those are like little doors, right? And skandhas, and that in the meditation one can find that these are like windows, super sensible windows of perception. I'm just going to give you a little hint there. I don't want to get too far afield, but these are things that are present in all genuine tradition. But you have to have the strong enough base of nutrition to be able to hold you within that in a balanced way. And of course, it's the being able to base your diet around having fruits and fresh fruits, vegetables, melons, grapes. All of that is going to help you the most, because that will give you something solid. And passionless food like eggs and milk, if you can deal with them. Some people can't deal with them. And I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't eat large amounts of any meat or chicken or any of that. But I've gone through old periods of years where I didn't eat anything but a vegetarian diet. You have to gauge for yourself where you're at. There were once students of Steiner having an argument in the restaurant across from the Goetheanum, the Center for the Anthroposophical Society, and they were arguing about vegetarianism. And Rudolf Steiner walked by, overheard them arguing, and they were trying to, guilt these people into becoming vegetarians. And so Rudolf Steiner walked up to the counter and spoke very clearly and loudly, and he said, "I'll have the pork." So if you think that just eating the right food is going to get you to heaven, then I guess all the cows have gone to heaven. But this is something that's a personal choice, that you have to decide what stage you're at, what diet works for you. But it does behoove oneself to try and emphasize fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet. And if you're going to eat grains, try to include whole grains and not refined grains too much. But I leave it up to you to figure out what all of this might mean. But as far as the therapeutic approach that can guide you through most things that are referred to as disease, but are actually conditions, by changing the acid-alkaline balance within the lymphatic system and the intra and extracellular fluids, can take you a long way towards dealing with most conditions that the human body can struggle with as a result of all the various toxins and stresses in the environment in which we live. And we're being forced into a high stress environment with all of this going on. So again, what I want you to do is try and keep yourself aware of that. It's a question of balance, and you don't have to be a fanatic, but in the same token, it behooves you to do certain things, like some of the indications I've given regarding contributing towards a healthy life path, and to also include in your life a benediction of as gestures to the divine. Consecrate your food, say grace over your meals, say prayers. They really are good for you, and the more you do them, the more results you will achieve thereby. And I guess since this is going on, and we have to take a peek and see if Zeeshan ever, maybe he's on a different time frame. I don't know. With all the time changes, I don't know about their time change in the UK, but that's okay. We had a nice little chat here. I just kind of ramble on, and but in getting into preparing for what's coming up within the next few days, it's just, this is really a critical situation for mankind. There are people that are attempting to pull the rug out from under the forces of freedom. And they masquerade as if they represent some kind of moral goodness. It's really, if you look at the cast of characters, I mean, it amazes me because I've seen some people that normally I really quite respect, but they just don't get the level of issues that are present within in here in the United States in the Democratic Party, and there in the UK, people that are putting forward this whole urge for totalitarian government and the willingness to be repressive. It's just sad, you know, and it's counter to what we're supposed to be doing at this time. But I have faith in God. I have faith in Jesus Christ, and I have hope for leaders like President Trump and Bolsonaro down in Brazil. I just hope that they can see clearly regarding what's going on in the realm of medical tyranny, because that's really where the center of this whole cabal has to do with the banking and medical establishment. That's really, and it's tied into the media and the military industrial complex, of course, but in the work we've done over at Americans for Innovation and American Intelligence Media, we firmly established through documents, and these are factual documents that show that at the basis of this whole international agenda is the big banks, pharmaceutical companies, and it began in the city of London. And I'm not going to get into all of that right now. I've done it time and time again, but it behooves you to go to American Intelligence Media and Americans for Innovation, because we've posted a great deal of documents there, some of which, by the way, have disappeared from other platforms. For example, one of the books that's so important, let's see, do I have it here? Got so many books I'm surrounded. Yeah, here it is. A book that I refer to on occasion is so seminal in understanding what we're going through today. It has a preface by Primrose, the Right Honorable Earl of Rosebery. And he is somebody I'm going to be presenting quite a bit of information. But this book was available on archive.org, but it has since disappeared. Isn't that amazing? Why would they do that? I wonder, but it's okay, because the whole book is available in a PDF that you could find on Americans for Innovation. And it shows how modern intelligence developed out of the media conglomerates of the time. And I've spoken on this frequently, but the reason I keep repeating this information is because it's so important. That the media have not infiltrated, or has not been infiltrated by the intelligence community. The intelligence community was created by the media / banking / chemical company conglomerate. And that conference was funded by the chemical company that's now known as GlaxoSmithKline. But at the time, they were operating under another name. The Wellcome Trust is one of its names, but it was originally Burroughs Wellcome, and they were the ones that did the germ warfare experiments in the Second Boer War in South Africa. I mean, these are people that they're not nice people. Bill Gates is not your friend. Oh, look, Well, there. I see Zeeshan peeking in here. So you must be. What are you in a different time frame or what? Because I've been going for an hour. Oh, there's your hand.
Oh, have you? Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! The clocks have gone back.
So, anyways, well, we are able to cover a lot of ground. We can go for another half hour. That's probably as long as your battery's going to last anyway. How you doing?
Good, good. I've just been. Oh, here we go. There we go.
There we go. Get yourself situated there. Don't fall over.
There you go. Hey, brother John.
Hey, how you doing? How's the weather?
Well, it's like the world. It's up and down, up and down, topsy turvy. We've had sun, we've had storms. It's yeah, it's this island, isn't it? This little island. And I want to let you all know that we listened to William. What a buffoon! Their tree is rotten to the core, but do know that many of us are planting trees, and we do not consent. We do not consent to Monsanto, which we can all agree on. We don't consent to. Hey, John. Anyway, dive on in there. But we don't consent, and we definitely don't consent to the royal family. For years, many of us were hoodwinked. They used things like the organic to kind of like hoodwink us, and as you folks know from your anthroposophical movement, it's been hijacked. They forgot who brought them to the party, and so the learned shall inherit the earth. My children. John says it's about the kids. I've just been talking to someone just now, telling them a story about St. David's Day, and I think St. David being the right word. And let's look at the stone of Scone, and let's ask ourselves, like, who are these imposters? Why should we care? And I think again, it comes back to those stories that we tell ourselves. And as long as we are doing the best that we can, like recently, I was partaking in some of my ancestral wisdom, which I sometimes think is, the Sufi movement, and just questioning everything, wondering what does it all mean, hearing different people's perspective, not make, and just at the end of the day, like today, someone said to me, Zish, check out all this common law stuff, and I'm like, I haven't got time. For me right now, it's just like, what's that saying? Give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day, but teach the man to fish, and you can feed him for a lifetime. So me and Kate right now, with all this weather and this people messing with our weather, messing with reality, and trying to change things and everything. All we know is what we know right here, right now. And, when people are deeming Walmart essential in America, and they're deeming Sainsbury's essential over here, and then you got all these like fake agendas going on, and you're just like, 1 minute, what do we do? And I think at the end of the day, and we don't know much, but I think we can all, like me, you, John, our viewers, all of us know that the small things that we're doing incrementally every day. So if it's, Nikki in Europe doing her herb garden, if it's John doing what John and Barbara are doing there in Detroit, if it's what Douglas and his wife are doing with Michael, and if it's what my children are doing, because I think they're clearly part of the dream, all of us, what we're all doing together, and like mystery, but without any of this new age stuff. It's like, 1 minute, I could get wrapped up in, because we're now hearing that we've lost all our rights because of Brexit, and and this Bojo Boris guy in London, and the only one that's making any sense for us in Britain is Nigel Farage, which I think he's actually in America right now. And I think it just brings it back to this whole thing, like where, I've got friends moving to Portugal because they think it's going to be better there. Other people are saying they're going to Cyprus. Some people are saying we're going to bring you to America. And I'm like, well, 1 minute, don't we all need to position ourselves where we're all to right here, right now, where somebody's, like my ancestors chose to leave Afghanistan. They were probably this, John's shared a few things about Antioch, and my kids are talking about it, and whatever John's talking about, my kids are then talking about, and the ideas that what my kids are doing right now, John. The kids are at home. They're all building like night masks and things like that, And I'm going out and I'm wondering, oh, do I have to wear a mask? Don't I have to wear a mask? And just witnessing. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, just. And I said to my landlord today, I said to him, I said, if they turn up, if we can't be 1,000% all in, then what are we? And then when they turn, if they turn up, these, and someone was saying to me the other day, actually, they're 5 years behind. Oh right, oh right, yeah. Here we go. I seen this one recently. Seen someone wearing this, So I had to wear my organic bag around my face yesterday, and then this lady made a conversation with me, and then it was like, why am I even speaking? So what, John? What I'm doing when people are asking me about masks and stuff, and I know that I'm amongst human beings, I'm just saying to them, I was going to wear a mask. I was going to wear my kid's night helmet, but I was, I got a live with John. But I made it. Better late than never. But oh my God. So, what are you guys thinking about, what's going on in America? What can we all do collectively? John invited me here because obviously, it's good for me to sell some natural medicine, this and that and the other. But I'm getting more to a point now where it's like, what can we all do in these moments, these precious moments that we have together? What strategies can we do? Because I don't think any of this other stuff matters. I think it's like, isn't it what we do at home? Like what we do now. Like if I haven't got honey, because people are saying Walmart's important, all these things are so-called important, but none of it fits into any of the agenda. So what is it that each one of us can do without being part of the 68 or the 22 or the 33 or the chosen ones? No, none of that malarkey, because all of us are miracles. It's like John, I've got to say, it's like I heard being the right word. And if everybody comes together at a designated place in London, I've got to just share with you where I'm to. If everyone comes together at a designated place in London, like Hyde Park, where they're all allowed to be, how? And they're there at an unlicensed 5G hotspot. And John has been putting together the 5G and the nano and all of it together. And I really think we need to look at the buckyballs. John does know that I've been saying, what about the buckyballs? What about the buckyballs? And so what if protest and all these things are like, it's like people now look at the, like the Hodge twins and, this new movement, there's like a new movement that's pushing against the grain. They're pushing against the grain. And you look like one of those Japanese nightmare stealers, John. I know it's an alien thing, but you look like a Japanese nightmare stealer. Anyway, so hodgepodge Zeesh coming in, not really knowing what it's all about, and just hoping in prayer. I I've seen some horrible stuff yesterday on Islam. I've heard some horrible things that have just happened in France with beheadings and all that. But I think in all these different movements, with the police, and all these different movements, I think maybe the message here is, don't all good things get infiltrated? And it's this, it's like that Sodom and Gomorrah story. If there's just a few of you praying and praying good, like I got to say it, because I've read John's book and I don't know, I read it and it's amazing. But when I walk on these mountains, my eyes are in tears. but I can then just think, well, when I was with the Sufis, they were like, come on in, Zeesh, we're gonna, you add a little bit of black magic, but we can work with you. You're able to surf those peripherals. So yesterday, I'll just share this because I know that you folks are like 1 foot in the astral, and you're like, well, maybe there's more than just one body. There's 37 bodies, and lots of people are questioning all these new age things and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, then, isn't it amazing what a good bit of music? And so then if we look at that Japanese thing where they say light plus sound equals beauty, and so then we just get into that hot spot or whatever it is, that frequency that makes us feel good, and where we're being bombarded and like attacked, and people are getting stressed out, people are wearing masks, they're saying the next wave's going to come through. We don't know, we can't pin all our hopes on Trump, we can't pin all our hopes on anybody. The only one, I think, that anyone like John can't pin his hopes on me. John can only pin his hopes on him. We can't, no one else is going to do anything for John. The only one who's going to do anything for John is John and John's ancestors that might be with him. We don't know. We don't know. And the only one who can do anything, like the other day I was walking last night, John. I walked last night all the way home. I was walking in the dark and no one was giving me a lift. And I was walking and I was just like, I was thinking about what John says and what his friend Douglas says. And, they've done like Douglas, like definitely, he's like, yeah, I've like Shakina and I've done this and I've done all these things and I'm super, super duper, woohoo, and you can't touch me. And I'm like, well, that's all well and good. But I'm there as a layman thinking, great granddad, if you're there, please, someone help me through these days. I asked him last night, John, I was just like, God, like, what is this bloody moon? What is it? Because we've had it all taken away and stripped down and we don't even know anymore. So I'm Brother Zeesh showing up today. The struggle is real, but we're very rich in many, many ways. And I'm just now plodding on through. They're going to get better, just plodding on through. And now we're planning to get the polytunnel up for winter. I'm looking forward to working with the bees so I can have honey for my family as medicine. And thank you, John, for having me today. Appreciate you, brother.
It's great. It's like I said, you're authentic. And that to me stands far more importantly than most anything, especially today with this. You look at the people in the political arena and almost everything coming out of their mouth is not true. I mean, it's just absolutely staggering the amount of falsehood that's being put forward today. And so it behooves people to try and strive for truth. And so part of it, I have my other podcast with Reverend David, What is Truth? And this is being in nature. And with Zeesh, it's about the authenticity of being in nature, and that this is where we are. We forget, we lose touch with the natural essence of life, and getting sucked into all these social media and mass media and all these boogeyman realms of fear. They get into try and get us all ginnied up, being all afraid about all this stuff. And to be honest, I don't know anybody that succumbed personally to this whole panic that everybody's all freaked out about. If they're out there, I haven't heard about it yet. So I don't know anybody. But yet I do know people that are struggling because their businesses are going under as a result of people reacting to this plandemic weirdness. It's just absolutely staggering, and that they've decided that this is a good way we can get everybody under control. Well, let me tell you, the elites behind all this nonsense are greatly outnumbered, and so it becomes a challenge of us, I guess, to develop pods of resistance. to just choose to not go along. There's that old, there was that old song by Phil Oakes. What if they had a war and nobody came? I like that concept of not participating in their little drama. And fear, I've had a kind of a wholesome relationship to fear for most of my life, and it has saved my life in occasions. I've had guns pulled on me and all that, and I don't, I guess I have a delayed reaction or something, because it doesn't really faze me at first, and that kind of disarms the person who's trying to put you into a state of fear. But it helps when dealing with wild animals. If you're afraid, they know, you know, and criminals are like wild animals. If you're fearful, they know. And that's what they want to do. They want to use that fear, but fear, that's where these people are coming from. So much of modern culture is fear-based. It's depending on fear. And so you have these poles of fear and anger, the cold process of fear, the warmth process of anger. And that's the hot and cold polarity that's churning back and forth and preventing you from finding your center. When people, the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, the pursuit of, if you pursue happiness, you could become kind of decadent fairly easily. If you pursued peace of mind, you'd be much better off, perhaps, and then happiness will just kind of come along with it, because you'll be peaceful. And Jesus said, "If therefore thine eyes be single, thy body shall be filled with God's light." So that's a pretty direct statement as far as I can see. So but what is that middle path that you could find that's going to bring you to that as an experience? Because he's telling you that, he's meant to tell you that that's an actual experience. It's not a metaphor. He said, shall be filled with God's light. That doesn't sound like a metaphor to me. And so that's what I'm working on personally. I just try to stay centered and it's like you're out in the sea in this boat and it's rocking all over the place. In fact, Jesus himself, what did he do? They're all freaked out. There's a big storm. They're out in their fishing boat, and what does he do? He walks on the water. Like, chill out, guys. Everything's okay. So I guess that's about as good of example as I can remember. Is the whole concept of being able to be in the midst of that kind of turmoil and yet still have peace. It's being able to confront that negativity, like the Persian tale I frequently recount of Jesus walking down the road with the disciples, and they come across a dead dog, and they're like, "Ooh, look at that!" And he's, "Yeah, but look at how beautiful his teeth are." So you have to be able to find the rose amidst the brambles, the thorns of the roses, and that's that whole thing, isn't it? It's because it's the bloom of the red roses coming out of the dark cross. That's the image, and it's that the healing is represented by the caduceus that the medical profession absconded with, that I question times if they have the right to use it. That's the healing image that we're moving into. Rudolf Steiner said the Earth evolution is Mars Mercury, and the transition is the incarnation of Christ. And now we're working towards spiritualizing the Earth. And people that are fighting that, they're really grinding it down into entropy. And you want to be able to lift yourself up and participate in those life processes. It's not necessary to actually get into a detailed exposition of it, but to come into a wholesome relationship with your myth, legends, and fairy tales, and get into a wholesome relationship artistically, and be able to surround yourself occasionally with good fragrances representing the Father and good light representing the sun, and good sounds representing the Holy Spirit. That will get you a long, long way.
Wow. Yes. Yes. So I agree with all of that. Good essences. Been that word essence recently has really been warming me, and I'm thinking to myself, whatever tradition, whatever tradition you are, whatever works. Like for me, I can't ignore that my grandmother was Afghan. So John's shared about the Zoroastrian and the pre-Egyptian, but then I've been interested in the Sufi wisdom and that word essence, and the smell that guides us. I remember before I went on this journey, being open to receive and always just trying to find. Like we came home to Wales as a family, and we were looking for those indicators in where we had to be. Many people, again, are moving, they're migrating. You don't like your water? Move. Like we live somewhere where the water should be really good in the local towns, but the water's is not good. There's something in the water. The first live me and John ever did, it was about the water, and if you don't like the water, well, one, you can start to pray, but it's like, but maybe you just need to move to where that water is pristine. So you're closer. But like yesterday, while I was walking home, no one was giving me a lift. And John shared something really quite interesting then that struck home. And it's like, what is it that you do in your practice that puts you into that sweet spot? It could be, for me, something like listening to Mind Power. Actually, the other day, I listened to Mind Power, and then I looked, because John's taught me to like look into the details, and I was like, and it said Barnwell. It was like one of John's brethren or sister were part of the engineering of the Mind Power. It was wonderful. I was like, oh, there you go. And it's like, and the more you return to a good piece of music, a good book, I'd put John's books in there because they've come from people that have, it's like, how on earth did, we've definitely come from something great. We can definitely say that. We can definitely say we've all come from something great. And I heard somebody say that things are seeking greater, fuller expression and expansion. And we're at a point right now where, John just said we've outnumbered them, so wow, isn't that amazing that if we just, and if each one of us, oh, I don't know, there's so much good going on. We're doing well as a family because we're like, okay, what do you like, viewer? What is it that you love? What food is it that you've always loved? And so how can you now today strategically vote with your dollar, vote with your pound, your yen, your euro? How can you strategically move that energy when small businesses are going down because some technocratic globalists that have ruined everything, and then they're telling us that they're going to fix everything, and they're the ones that have ruined it in the first place? But how is it that we can learn from you and you can learn from us, and together we can somehow, like Zeeshan's great grandparents would feed the homeless every Sunday. That was an Irish great grandmother, a Northern Spanish. Well, really, he's not really Northern Spanish. He was Basque, so he'd probably be very upset that I was calling him Northern Spanish. But they would come together and they would feed the homeless. So not everyone has, like, I might take it for granted that I know how to make an almond milk or a gorilla milk. I may take it for granted, but what I've noticed is talking to humans, the human beings where you can, and sharing with them those stories. Like, for example, I'm often inspired by Dr. John Christopher, the late herbalist in America, and he speaks common sense. Nigel Farage speaks common sense. You listen to him and you're like, wow, he's like your uncle. He's like an Uncle John here. Like my uncle, I have an Uncle Anthony John. They go and speak to him, and he makes some kind of common sense. You listen to Nigel Farage; he's like listening to an uncle. You can imagine him smoking a few cigarettes, having a pint down the pub, you know, doing the Grand National. You speak to him, he makes total sense. And if you go back to 1956, the BBC. Now, I don't do the BBC. I don't like what the BBC stands for. I don't like the sculptures across the old BBC. I don't like any of this British propaganda broadcasting network. But they, at some point, interviewed the Londoner. And when you listen to the Londoner back in those days, and you listen to how they spoke, the innocence of how they spoke, and they would speak about what would you do if you have the flu? And all of them mentioned the importance of a good oatmeal porridge. Whatever your oatmeal porridge is, make sure you're getting a good breakfast into you. You know, if you're at a point right now where you eat meat, there's no judgment here with mine and John's lives. You know, your spiritual nutrition is your spiritual nutrition. If you're at a point right now where you eat of the bacon, try and find the man that allows the pig, or the lady farmer that allows the pig to be a pig and allows that pigness of the pig to be the best of the pig. And they'll tell you a fun story about the pig and the life of that pig. And that reflects in the bacon that you have. Know about your oats. Know about the water. If you want milk, go out there and find raw, unpasteurized, pasture-raised milk. If you love the almond, go and find that almond farmer that's going the extra mile with the almond. And here in Britain, you know, you wouldn't know it, but here in Wales, Zeesh is Welsh, but I should probably be speaking like this, but I don't. I'm an undercover agent living here in the land. And the Welsh mayor, she'll say to me, Zeesh, you should learn the Welsh language. I'm like, well, that's all well and good that I should learn the Welsh language. That was stolen from you by the people in London that you're now being so compliant with. And I can't even find any butter. The butter that I'm having to buy, strategically invest my pound with, is coming from a 200-year organic farm, the other end of the country. And I'm living in an area where longevity was here, John. The longevity was here because we had that raw, unpasteurized butter, that buttermilk. Veganism can't work. And now veganism has an agenda. Suddenly, like, all these things that we thought were good end up with an agenda. Rudolf Steiner, the teachings of that, the biodynamic, it was all good, but then it gets infiltrated by these different kinds of people that have an agenda to keep it all for themselves and their chums. My friend, a lot of people in Britain don't like Margaret Thatcher, but I think she was used for an agenda. And so a lot of people, like so many people in Britain, blame Trump. Like, I was at whiskey night the other, just blending in with the locals. everyone was blaming Trump. I was there at the end of it, John, like, saying, none of you even realize that you actually really love Trump because you're giving him so much energy. And I said it again. It's rude, actually. When I'm just calling him Trump, it's like John, like me calling John, hey, Barnwell. Oi, Khan. You know, Mr. They're so rude. They're so rude to him. Like, you know, they're so rude. And we're at a point right now where we have to remember, like, you listen to the old Welsh lady and you ask her, what would you do? Or you ask late John Christopher, what would you do if you had the flu? Number one, and then we can all agree on this, fast. Don't eat any solid food. But maybe let's uplift the word fast, like we have to uplift the word food. We have to upgrade it. We're given these words, and we're given them because they're given to us with an agenda. We have to live them authentically. Like John, and I respect John humbly for seeing that. You know, I'm a bit of an every master, was once a disaster, but I'm a dad. I'm doing these lives because I don't want skinny kids. You know, so I'm grateful. Anyone that's helped us, I'm really, really grateful. Thank you. You know, many of you have helped, so we appreciate that. But it comes back to like simple common sense, like, don't eat food. Go onto a liquid feast. Nourish yourself. If you're a vegan, learn from the best vegans out there that are doing veganism the best that they can. People like Peter Ragnar, Dr. Gabriel Cousins. But you do need quite a healthy bank balance to do the whole vegan thing especially if you're living in a cold climate. You need to make sure you're having the good, warm Epsom salt baths, and you're warming up your spleen and drinking good, warm beverages like chaga mushroom tea. In America, you've got great herbalists like Paul Stamets and Ron Teagarden. But if you have the flu, get on the raspberry leaf tea. Get on your broths. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, get on your miso broth. It worked for the Japanese, it'll work for you. Make sure it's organic because you don't want the GMO soy. But remember that the miso worked for those that were experiencing the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Those that were drinking that barley ferment, miso with hot water, broth, they didn't get the C word. So liquid nutrition is very, very important. And if you're a meat eater, get on your bone broths. Support those. A lot of the bones are often going to waste. And there are good people out there today fighting for the rights of the small business. I'm choosing to barter and work with the small business. I don't have the silver, but I will. If anyone wants any of my superfoods, I will barter with you. I'm not just about the money. Energy helps. It means I can go out and maybe buy some chicken wire to build a little pen for some ducks so I can keep some turkeys or some ducks or whatever, but for me, it's like wherever you're to, it's meeting people where they're to. I'm actually a holistic lifestyle coach trained by Paul Chek. He's over in the West Coast, California. He was actually a student. He's a student of Rudolf Steiner too, John. And he also likes Osho and all that stuff. But I'm under his wing of a practitioner. So I'm actually a proper trained practitioner. I've paid money to go and train his assistant Vidya. I did some work with her with superfoods. And she was like, you should be a holistic lifestyle coach. So I'm HLC1. If you don't have much money and you need me to help you, a lot of people don't realize simple things like how to make bread. They might be having issues with certain foods that they're trying to work out. And it's often simple little things that we can switch and change. Like for many, many years, I'll just share this. I was a vegan for about 9 years, a raw vegan, life food, alkaline vegan, traveled to America, lived at alkaline ranches in California. And I've been searching to help heal my children from their diagnosis for about 20 years now. I've come up against medical technocracy, I've lost my home, all these things, but we've never lost our children for a day. And all the while, always seeking the best that we can as parents, because I think we have the right to choose. I think we have the right to choose. I'm inspired by what John's people bring to the table when I learn about the Minutemen and the Black Robe and, what we can all do when we come together. And we are now witnessing this invisible something. But I haven't even shared the story yesterday when I was walking home, because of what John just said. I was walking home and there was a point I was carrying my bags, I was carrying food. My little boy wanted some potatoes. So I walked into town. I don't have a car. I'm really living the agenda to the fullest, but I'm ready. My friend Sean says, chin up, but nose to the ground. So I'm living my life to the fullest. I think John's right. When you're doing your work, your spiritual practice, I do a lot of like what me and John, must be a Libran thing, a Ten of Hearts thing. Me and John share the same birthday, and we're both into the cold water plunging and therapy. And these are sorts of things that help us get into the state that helps us peel back those layers. And if it means that we're helping do the work for the plan, whatever the plan is, then so be it, we do the work. And yesterday, while I was walking, I got to a point where the bridge was there, and I'm curious, like, what is the wind? Well, someone's told us it's the wind and all these sorts of things. But from my estimation, if you were a child in my grandmother's arms, you could certainly say there's a certain connection between grandmother's prayer, because my nana didn't speak any English. She was in full-blown Afghan Pashto prayer mode. And many people that knew Zeeshan's grandmother, I can imagine John sitting with my grandmother, and they'd be in a wonderful state together. John would probably be sat with her chewing pan, and they'd have a chuckle, and they'd enjoy good film and music. And I know that I could appreciate music with John and things like that, you know, and life is really, really good. And yesterday, while I was walking, the wind, as I was walking, and I was like, just trying to, you know, sometimes I can't remember my affirmations and I'm walking, and something just said to me, Zeesh, I passed the wind. And as I passed the wind, where my body was overheating, John will have ideas to share about that to do with the kidneys, and my body was definitely having issues with regulating the heat cold yesterday, but it's because I was wearing a man-made jacket, and we can often forget about those things. We've got a lot of man-made things around us, and God, the creator or the spirit, whatever, said, get back into that wind, Zeesh. But I didn't listen. But as I was acknowledged that spirit or something said, get back into that wind, I looked up, because often we can be so in our minds that we don't even look around us. And then I seen this bat, and it just flew over my head, and I just got to just come into that present moment, and just like, whoa, there it was, the bat. And then a few times on the way home, then just kept seeing the bat, and it was wonderful, you know. And it's like I'm having to walk because God's given me the gift of walking. You hurt your little finger today. You realize how precious and how important that little finger was. And all these little gifts that we've been given, we can often take them for granted. And it's like, oh my God, I'm grateful. I'm really grateful to be here, to be given this platform with John. And yeah, I don't know, I hope I bring some value to the table. And you know, and so I think, but nobody's really talking about these little things, like if you were to come to Wales, say 1956, and you had the flu, every Welsh woman would have said to you, elderflower wine, which would have been honey and elderflower, which is the pollen, which is the vitamin D, which is the beneficial yeasts and enzymes all together, with good water. Would have had all of that. They would have had the mustard, they would have had the fat, the goose fat, and they would have said, go and sweat it out. So we have to, if none of us are even using a fraction of our brain, how important is it now for us to start to do things that help us to exercise even a grain of a molecule of a brain? And so when John mentioned, because John mentioned something wonderful, I need to listen. I would love, John, if you could send me that prayer that Jesus said or whatever, I'd like to read it anyway and bring it in. But something as simple like, when the clues are there, I sell natural medicines because they're safe and effective and they work. I have spikenard. If anyone wants to email me, they can email me at theblackgoldgarden@gmail.com. I have nard, a really good nard that's grown in Nepal. Frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon, all these things. And while we're going into this period now where people are wearing masks, they're stressed out, their immune systems are going down, it's really important now that you take those next steps. Many of you might be on the silver and all those sorts of things. I have good frankincense. If you don't want to get it off me, go and invest in some good organic frankincense. Invest in some Epsom salt. Build your stores, because they are saying that food shortages are coming. I have food and I can help people with food too. If you're in Britain, let me know. I've got food, like high quality, nutrient dense food. And I think it's really about quality over quantity. And just anyway, that's my take on all of it. Being the best versions of ourselves, being better today, you know, and that's it. Brother Zeesh.
I see it's getting a little dark there.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. So if you want to contribute towards Zeesh's visionary quest, you can go to paypal.me/visionary life hacks, and hacks is HAKZ. You could find a link to that beneath this podcast on YouTube or on Facebook. And also I have a thing where you could buy me a cup of coffee if you feel so moved at paypal.me / John Barnwell 888. And my books that I mentioned earlier are available on eBay here in the United States, continental US. If you're outside the country, you can get a hold of me. You could private message me on Facebook, and we can work something out. I've been getting books to people outside in the UK, and then recently one in Poland. Hi to Poland. I just sent one off to Israel. So hi everybody around the world, and thanks for stopping by. And if you want to find more information on Rudolf Steiner's work, you can always go to my friend James Stewart's massive Rudolf Steiner archive at rsarchive.org. And but in light of all this, and in light of our special friend here, I just want to thank you all for stopping by and being able to partake of the wisdom of our young friend Zeeshan Haider Khan about being in nature. And for myself, I give you a truly warm and heartfelt thanks.